All right, so we're going to discuss really quickly how to go ahead and export out an image as a DNG, and we're just going to make it really simple. Just We're going to make it simple. We're going to look at one image in particular. Here's a black and white image. I need to export this out for a black and white assignment, whether it's a printing assignment or whatever it is. I need to export this out. So when required to print out DNG files for this class, all you need to do from Lightroom is, once you get done processing the image, now whether this is the original image or a virtual copy, either one can be exported out. See, this one's called a copy here, and you notice it's a virtual copy because it's called that, and this is the original. And you'll also know this because if we go to the grid module, once again you see that the original is here and the virtual copy has always got this little pulled up corner telling me that there's something underneath reveal here. So I'm going to go ahead and just undo that. I didn't need that extra copy. I appear to have lots of copies of this image. So back to the image. This is the one I want to export. I'm going to go ahead and choose to export this out as a DNG. Now, as we mentioned before, a DNG is like having the original RAW file, but with the metadata actually encoded inside of it, and that way it's a complete package. Now, remember, this type of file is only really specifically read when you export from Lightroom in Adobe products. So you can take a look at it in any sort of other Adobe product that actually can see a DNG, such as Photoshop, etc., etc. So I'm going to go ahead and choose to export this out, and I'm going to go File, choose the Export option, and then I'm going to just click on this. I'm not going to click the checkbox. I'm going to go ahead and just click the highlight of the area. This gives me all the settings, but without whatever the specifics were that they wanted you to use. When they set these presets up in here, they hid some of the options. So if you actually undo that and just highlight it, you're going to be doing a DNG. So at the top, you always leave this as choose a folder later. It's useful for the presets. If you're required to do a file renaming, you can do it here, and basically you can go in and say custom name and original file number or whatever your requirements are. So if I was to go in and do this, I could say, you know, custom name, original file number, and then I would go into here, type in the custom text, and let's say it's assignment 4. I would go in assignment heavy hands today. And so that would basically be like that custom text, or I could go in and just A04 and then underscore last name, or whatever the file name needs to be. So if it needs to be file renamed, that's what you're going to do here. Video, you ignore that. Image file format, it has chosen DNG by default because you chose the preset here. You're going to go ahead and choose JPEG preview, leave that as medium size because there's an embedded preview that can be viewed as a thumbnail in other applications. Embed fast data is great. If you want to use lossy compression, which means you want to compress this DNG file, you can, but remember this uses the same compression that JPEG uses, so that means you lose information. Lossy means you lose information, lossless means you do not. Now, if you're doing this for some sort of archival purposes, you can also choose to embed the original RAW file inside of the DNG. It makes a much larger file, but later on that can be extracted out for whatever purpose. The rest of these options don't actually show up because they're all default allowed or not allowed. For example, there's no image resizing because they're not creating a pixel image such as a PSD, a TIFF, or a JPEG. There's output sharpening. It's creating a DNG, so it's got its inherent the natural or original built-in sharpening that it has. Watermarking cannot be added because remember this is based on the original RAW file with the sidecar metadata all included in the same package. So there is no watermarking of an original file type. Then down here, the last option I always like to do is say show in Finder. That helps me to export it. Then when I click export, it pops up and says, where do you want to put this? you go ahead and go, depending on what you're doing. If you're doing a class where you have a hierarchy set up on your hard drive, you might be going in and doing something like that. So I might be going into say a class like this, and I would be going into a folder that might be called to be turned in, and then I would go in here and find the A04 folder that I might be putting the work in, and then I would just go ahead and say open, and then it would choose that, and that's where it would export it to. Then it pops up and says, here is the file you just created, and it shows that it's already in there. So that just helps me see it, and that makes it easy to see. For my purposes, I don't need to have an extra copy of that image, so I'm going to go ahead and remove it. So that's basically exporting out a DNG for the purposes of the assignment, or whatever your purposes are. So exporting a DNG, there you have it.